Good morning. I'll call the June 12th, 2026 Public Health and Safety Committee meeting to order. Uh, My name is Jean Borak. We have Vice Chair Cindy Rickards online, and we have council member Joe Stratton here, along with Police Chief John String, Public Works Director Jeff Eldon, and Borough Manager Maggie Dodd. Before we begin, I just want to take a brief moment to recognize an important achievement by the police department. On June 2nd, the Norfolk Police Department was awarded accreditation by the Pennsylvania Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission. So I'd like to recognize Chief String and Sergeant Bernacchio and their hard work to help guide this through. And Chief String, would you like to just kind of explain for the average layperson what that accreditation means for the borough?
So this is an outside party assessment. So the Pennsylvania Chiefs of Police has a committee that sets standards and then assigns assessors to come out and make sure that the police department's meeting those standards. It's about 140 standards, but I think all told, because some of them have subsections, it's like 350 or 370, somewhere around that is, pretty detailed. And we have to show 2 proofs of compliance for each one of those standards. So they come in, they review all our files electronically. We have to upload everything into the system. But then they review, the station, they do ride-alongs, they ask us questions, interviews, things of that nature. So it's a comprehensive review. It takes 2 days for them to complete. And based on that, they make a recommendation to a committee, again, that same committee appointed by the PA chiefs to accredit the agency. And we're fortunate enough to pass that and be nominated for accreditation.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And I think this achievement also reflects the hard work of the entire police department and that it meets professional standards. And thanks for instilling that confidence in the community.
It was a lot. They'll be here on Thursday, and I'll have a little bit more in depth there to say. But I mean, it was the police department. It was, borough management, public works helped us move the evidence room, which we would not have been able to get accredited under the old evidence room. So it was a whole team effort. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to item 1 on the agenda, which is approval of the minutes. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes for April?
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Minutes are approved. Thank you. Move on to the second item, project and community updates. Item 2A, Montgomery Avenue and Corridor Study. Maggie, do you want to give an overview?
Yeah, so a brief update here. We had public kickoff meeting last year. Lower Merion Township engineers have been working on drafting the recommendations, which were reviewed by staff and representatives of the elected officials from both Narberth Borough and Lower Merion Township. Based on those recommendations and feedback from staff and elected officials, the engineers will be going and making some additional improvements to the recommendations, particularly the visualizations that they're drafting to help articulate some of the recommendations coming out of this plan. Originally, we were looking forward to the next public meeting sometime early summer because the engineers will need a little bit more time to work on some more of the enhanced visualizations, documents, and other supporting materials. That looks like it's going to be pushed back until the fall. So the next public engagement opportunity then for the corridor study will be sometime in the fall. We're looking at September, but the township will inform us when that is ready for the next engagement, and we will be sure to advertise that extensively to encourage folks to come read the recommendations and participate in the next step of the public process.
Okay, great. And I'll just note that so it was myself, Councilmember Bush, Councilmember Samonson, and Manager Dobbs, who was at the meeting, and we did kind of go over some of those recommendations, that the preliminary recommendations that they talked about. And they're considering a potential eastbound lane reconfiguration or from Sabling Ave to Marion Road. I know that's been talked about in the community a lot, whether that would be a road diet would be recommended for that road, but the engineers did note that a 2-way lane reconfiguration would be feasible during the off hours, but they were saying that it would likely be infeasible during the peak hours. It would just result in longer queue times for those times. And then we talked about the specific intersections along Nubbard. They also talked about having buckets of projects. So some short-term projects that might be as early as the end of this year, although it seems like that's unlikely to happen at this rate. So probably looking into 2027, and those are things like signal timing and signage and things like that, and then the larger, longer term projects like bump outs and crosswalks and things like that, and new signals.
And I think it is important to highlight the fact that this study, the end result of this study will be a recommended plan.
Right.
So it's like a comprehensive plan in that there's no direct action that will be taken from this. These are all the concepts, and then the actual execution and administration and implementation of these recommendations will require further engineering design and grant funding and other allocation of funding for the implementation. So there's as you said, the bucket, some of the smaller things that might be better incorporated into the township's budget, kind of more immediate, versus some of these larger projects, which will require additional grant funding. And I know the township is looking to pursue funding opportunities for some of those larger projects moving forward. So this plan will be really instrumental in kind of outlining that vision for how we move forward with any improvements to the corridor. Obviously, this is all owned by Lower Merion, so in terms of the implementation, it will be on them primarily. But there are certain, pedestrian and streetscape improvements that were discussed as well with the small groups, and those will come out as well with the recommendations.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
A question I have is for the meeting where there would, could be resident participation. Is it only in person representation is that the only way that people can participate? I'm thinking about the last meeting was at 6 p.m. on a weekday night, and families with young children, that's an incredibly busy time to leave and go to a meeting. Is Lower Merion picking up Zoom participation, do we know, or could we recommend that?
I don't know what they're thinking. I think Zoom might be challenging, but I know that all of the presentation materials were made publicly available on the website for review, and then comment was collected both in person and then on a rolling basis. But we can certainly talk to the township and understand what their plan is for the opportunities for public engagement, and if that's going to be in person or a hybrid version.
Wonderful, thank you. I know that those are people who are very interested in the safety of that corridor.
Yes,
all of us are, but in particular.
And I forget exactly. I don't know if you have in your notes how many comments they did receive, but it was a lot. I mean, the township received hundreds of comments from folks, and obviously not all of those people were at that kind of kickoff meeting. So this certainly demonstrates that it was made visible and apparent to folks even who weren't able to attend the meeting. So there's definite community interest and participation in this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I also spoke with the head of the circulation committee in Lower Merion, and we talked about potentially organizing a walk audit along Montgomery Avenue. So if anyone in the committee is interested in being involved with that, we can talk about maybe planning something during the summer or sometime before that September meeting. Any other discussion or questions around this item? Okay, we'll move on to item 3. We have the Mainline Greenway and Lower Merion Active Transportation Plan, item 2B. So we do have the active transportation plan that Maggie had shared last month, and that's posted also on the website. I encourage everyone to take a look at it. So that plan is in completed form. We're not really sure what the next steps are in terms of whether that requires an adoption.
No, it's just a tool that was published by the County Planning Commission, obviously in coordination with Lower Merion and Narberth Borough. So if you want to have a formal adoption to just kind of advertise it, but we don't need to formally adopt it, is my understanding.
Okay. So I encourage the committee to take a look at that and look at all of the recommendations that are in the recommendation section. There's also a planned improvement section that is mainly focused on the Mainline Greenway. And I know we're approaching the CIP discussions soon, so maybe that's something that we can think about as well. Okay, we'll move on to item 3, recommendation to council for the EAC resignation of Charles O'Kane. Could I have a motion to recommend to council to accept the EAC resignation from Charles O'Kane?
I submit.
Second.
Okay, and just on behalf of council, I'd like to thank Mr. O'Kane for his service to the Environmental Advisory Council. And has this opening been posted, or are we waiting for?
It's been posted, yes.
It's been posted, okay. Do we have any interest already, or?
I have not received any applications for this open position.
Okay. Okay. Any discussion on this item?
No.
Okay. And any, actually, I'll open the floor to public comment on this, since we're voting on this. Any public comment in the room? No. And we don't have anyone online?
We do.
Oh, we do?
Next up.
There's one person online.
Any comments from anyone online
Regarding the EAC resignation.
regarding the EAC recognition? Seeing none, and I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Okay, and that's 3-0. Motion passes. Next item is discussion items for a driveway sightline. So this first item under discussion concerns driveway sightlines and traffic safety. So this topic was initially raised by a resident on the 300 block of Dudley Avenue, who expressed safety concerns about sightline issues impacting 3 driveways on that block that they say were caused by the installation of the stormwater pump outs on that block. So committee members have received those emails along with the response from Chief String. So you all should have somewhat of an idea of the issue, and Chief String also determined that this was not a parking enforcement issue, and that pavement markings would not be enforceable. And the resident noted that the installation of this stormwater pump out removed several on-street parking spaces, which is basically causing a situation where 3 cars attempt to park in a curb space that safely only fits 2 cars, which then makes it more difficult to see approaching cars when they're exiting those driveways. So I wanted to bring this discussion to public health and safety just because the issue may have broader relevance as the borough continues implementing the stormwater infrastructure in other areas. And so we have additional stormwater bump outs that are in the borough's pollutant reduction plan, which is required for us to comply with the state mandates for stormwater management. So the purpose of this discussion is to understand the concern from residents and also understand from Chief String and the staff what the practical limitations are associated with addressing those sightline issues, and determine if it's an issue limited to this specific instance or if it may impact other locations, and to see if this committee would like to recommend any action from the staff. So Chief String, I'd like to turn it over to you to just give an overview of your assessment.
So we reviewed the issue from an enforcement standpoint, and we conducted, I think it was 28 different observations across 2 weeks, random times in the day, to see if there was any sort of violation that was occurring from vehicles parking that encroached on the driveway. Across that whole time period, there were no violations. He had mentioned that, 3 vehicles were parking in a space for 2. They were doing so legally. So it wasn't like that there was an illegal ticket or, something we could issue to resolve it. It did come close to the person's driveway, but not so close to cause a violation. The one thing we noted is the driveway apron in this instance is very narrow. So where a lot of new driveways, the driveways are wider and then your apron widens out even further to kind of give you a little bit more leeway. This driveway doesn't have any of that. So it does create a specific issue here, we felt like. Either way, even painting an X, we didn't see any vehicles that would have been inside that X on that driveway. So it didn't really seem to serve any purpose to paint something where we haven't even seen cars across 20 violations or 20 observations parking there. I think the resident then said that they would like the X further out. That becomes an enforcement problem and an expectation problem, because now if we paint an X further out, we're setting an expectation to the resident that we can somehow enforce that, and we can't. The code is specific that they have to encroach on the driveway. They can't be in proximity to the driveway and get a ticket. So the way we'd have to enforce that is now setting up a new parking regulation, and we'd have to enforce it with signs, no parking between signs. We'd have to codify that. So we're going well beyond what would be like a normal, hey, we have a parking issue. Because there was, not that we saw, at least, so.
So I did meet with the resident yesterday to just kind of on site to just take a look at exactly what was going on. And it looked like it was it's very hyper localized to primarily 2 curb sections. So it's impacting mainly 2 driveways, I think, and which are across from each other. So it's one curb section on one side and another curb section on the other side of the street. And the problem that they're seeing is that they have to. It's more of a safety concern. It's not, like you said, it's not an enforcement issue. That they have to pull out the car completely because of the tight parking situation, in order to be able to even navigate that turn. And they have to do that blindly without it being able to see the oncoming traffic. So, I think different things that we had talked about, and I'm not proposing these solutions, but it was just kind of, if we could do striping without the enforcement aspect of it, to just kind of encourage, like I think we had initially talked about doing striping parking spaces for Price Avenue, and similar to what we have striped out here with Haverford Avenue, just to kind of give indications of where cars should park, rather than having them. And the thing is, I guess the downside of that is that you could still ignore the striping.
If I could just hop in. Oh,
Go ahead, Cindy.
sorry, Joe. I just want to zoom kind of out and up for a moment. I think it's very confusing for community members when staff in the appropriate position are having these conversations and have the authority to make decisions and recommendations, and then council, we're going out and saying something different. We saw this with the storm bump outs. We're seeing it with the driveway. I just want to kind of reiterate, we have hired John String as the chief of police and the director of public health and safety. I am deferring to you, John, as the expert. We have the exact same dynamic on our street too. So we have lots of cars in Narberth. This is an issue. I really just think that we need to be mindful of saying we have the professional staff in place. This is why we have hired them. None of us are police or public health and safety experts. So I will defer to you, John. And I caution us not to have these individual conversations with residents, because we're going to be playing whack-a-mole and often in conflict to the folks who are qualified to make these decisions. So that's all.
I mean, just to clarify, like, no promises have been made or, I just wanted to let them know that it was.
Yeah, I think we confuse residents of like who is the authority, and the answer to that, in my mind, is the experts who we've hired to do that. And I would never make an assessment on safety or a conversation, and just want to say this is not just one driveway. This is a substantial, probably amount of Narberth. So we need to be pretty careful on what precedent we're setting.
I guess my concern is that as we're installing these stormwater bump outs, and it does impact parking in some way, some shape or form, do we have the means to address some of those impacts and those concerns? I realize we don't have a perfect solution for this particular problem, but if it's something that we want to be able to address in some shape or form, if we do have those impacts, I think that would also help the success of this stormwater bump out project as well.
I'm sorry, I thought we were talking about driveway stripes.
Well, the resident is saying that prior to the stormwater bump out,
Sure.
they thought that this was not an issue, but because it removed 3 parking spaces, it was
Right.
an issue for them.
No, I understand that. But from our perspective, I just think, John, you gave a succinct answer. I think I appreciate the thoughtful evaluation you and the police and Jeff Eldon did. And I will defer to your assessment. That's all.
I align with that. Thank you.
So, I'm hearing from go ahead.
Just to address, you mentioned the parking, like putting lines to delineate parking spaces. And I think we talked about that on pricing. I'm not going to pretend like I remember the length of the average parking space if we line it.
In our ordinance, it's 22 feet. So
Right.
if we go around in line, just getting the length of cars that are parked on this street, the average length is between like 15 to 17 feet. So now we're losing 3 to 5 feet, so that can correlate to a loss of potentially, 5 to 10 parking spots per street if we start to paint out parking stalls.
Mhm.
So I think from a perspective of it allows us enforcement and we can regulate because this is a spot, we've defined it. Now there is an ordinance that says if you're not parked within a spot, we can give you a ticket. So that would create an avenue for enforcement, but at the risk of losing other spots. Or if we just, I'm hesitant to just paint the lines and then say we're not going to enforce them because then we get back to expectations been set, people call in and people call in about their driveways all the time, it's a frequent issue. So I don't want to get to this point where we set an expectation by painting the lines and then we just say, hey, we're not going to enforce it.
So are you saying that if we were to paint the lines within the standards, that would be enforceable because it's an official parking space?
We're delineated on the roadway that borough owns that this is a parking space, and there's an ordinance violation that says you have to park within a space. So, if we delineate that this is our parking space, then yes, but at the risk of losing more parking. So a lot of the potential resolutions kind of aggravated the complaint, which was we've lost parking. So if we thereby try to do any of these other things, we're losing more parking. The one solution that presented, I know it's not an ideal solution, but I never like to say there's no solution, was that open the apron of the driveway, go draw a permit, open up the apron. So now you have this extra room to pull in, pull out. I know it's not ideal and it's an expense to the resident, but I think that allows the residents to address their specific issues and it doesn't become a borough problem at that point.
So I think I'm hearing from the both committee members that there's no interest in pursuing any further action on this.
Wouldn't say no interest. I think that there's no avenue for pursuing something differently. So painting parking spot lines would cause a loss of parking spaces. Painting, I don't see that we have the authority to impact this in any way, honestly.
Yeah, I will say, if, I don't know what the actual curve length of those sections are, so I don't know if it would fit, that would have to be measured. But if it were striped that way, it wouldn't be a loss of parking spaces for that block because, they wouldn't be able to safely fit 3 cars.
I just want to be cautious. Are we suggesting that in just that one area we stripe, where those 3 cars are parked in what seems like 2 spaces? Or are we thinking of striping the whole?
Just the 2 curb sections where the problem is occurring.
Well, I think we should be very thoughtful about just doing one specific area. I don't know how that fits.
I completely agree. I mean, this is going to then be the precedent for the rest of the borough where, I mean, this is very much an issue on my street too. I again would just defer to John String and his professional assessment.
I could be missing something, but it seems, just striping one very small area.
Yeah, I mean,
almost feels like the borough could be accused of playing favoritism or something like that in some way. I just worry about that.
I think the way I'm looking at it is just from when the borough is taking away parking spaces to put in infrastructure. If there is a way to address some safety concerns that come out of that, and if,
But to play devil's advocate, what happens when we allow a single family home to become a multi-family home? And instead of there being 2 cars in that home, there are 5 cars. We haven't built a bump out, but we've allowed a change to take place that has increased the number of cars available. And
currently, I think most of our housing has parking requirements, right? With the exception of ADUs and cottages on lots. Well,
if a single family home is turned into a multi-family home, there are parking requirements that off-street parking that is required.
Off-street parking?
Yeah.
I'd have to double check the code specifically, but probably.
Okay, I thank you. I was not aware of that.
But
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, I mean,
could be considered where there's a bump out. Yep. I would recommend that we look more into that before passing that along to council. Because we have how many more bump outs coming?
I think generally, I mean, staff, our professional engineer and our chief of police and director of public works, I'm assuming, and John and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, you're evaluating safety when you talk about these bump outs. I think it's appropriate for us to say, hey, we just want to make sure that you're doing that. And we're mindful that parking is an issue in Narberth. Please consider those when you're making those assessments.
Well said.
Chief String, if I may put you on the spot,
Yeah.
do you think there is a safety concern for those driveways?
So I'm looking real quick on Google Maps. It's showing about 58 feet. So we wouldn't be able to put 320 some, right?
22.
Thank you. Put spots in there. And ironically, Google Maps, when the little car thing drove by, there's 3 cars parked there. And all 3 cars, I should say the end cars, are sufficiently away from the driveway. So, could there be a safety concern because someone is negligent? Yes, and we address that through enforcement like we do every other day. Is there on its face this, problem that we need to address? I don't believe so. Thank you.
I think the purpose of this discussion was just to determine whether we wanted the staff to follow up with any further action or exploring, and it doesn't look like that's the case. So I'll move on to the next discussion item, which is the review of the downtown parking.
All right, so this is something that this committee had requested last year, and we had our summer intern last year work on doing an analysis of the various parking restrictions on street throughout the borough. I will note this was prior to our adoption of the ordinance amendment a few months ago that modified the 2-hour parking streets on the south side. So we do still need to update this map to reflect that. So this is not a final version, and there's a couple of kind of technical clarifications and edits that we'd like to make to this. But I wanted just to get this in front of you. So this was a map that was created by MCPC. We gave them the materials, the streets, and then they mocked it up in their graphics team. And this was done through the existing planning assistance contract that we have with the county. So it's a great asset that we're able to lean on them for some of these more intricate kind of graphic design elements that we're not able to complete in-house. So Jean, I know particularly with your background, you might have some thoughts about design scope, but this is what we were thinking. So just wanted to get your feedback today on this. Again, the purpose, as previously stated, is that we intend to use this map as both a physical and a digital tool and resource for residents and visitors to the borough to showcase where you can and cannot park, what restrictions there are, if it's a 2-hour zone or if it's an unrestricted zone, where metered parking is and where our parking lots are located. So we have different icons also to point out some of the key landmarks and destinations, so including the library, our parks, Borough Hall, and the SEPTA train station. So we have different icons indicating different destinations, and then the colors on the lines indicating where we have metered parking, 2-hour parking, no parking, and then if there's no line on the street, then it's unrestricted parking. A couple of things that I will just note off the bat is there's a few areas where we're depicting no parking, where there's no parking anywhere on the street. So that to me feels redundant and it just kind of clutters up the look. So anything that we have along Montgomery Avenue, there's obviously no parking along the full length of Montgomery Avenue. So why we have periodic lines where it shows no parking, I don't think is necessary since there's no parking anywhere along there. And similarly with Wynwood Avenue, there's no parking anywhere along Wynwood Avenue. So we have one of two choices. We could either put a red line along the entire frontage of Montgomery Avenue and Wynwood Avenue. To me, that's just a lot of extra lines that we don't necessarily need. So my recommendation would be we just remove those altogether.
I agree with that.
I agree.
Okay. Similarly, we have like Hanson Court, we have some no parking. And then we show the little lines at the intersections are where we have marked no parking here to corner signs. So again, we have these little kind of dashes throughout that indicate no parking here to corner. I'm not sure also if from a visual perspective that's going to be helpful or useful on this particular kind of map, since when you go there to park, that street is otherwise available for unrestricted parking, but obviously you would be compelled to follow whatever parking restrictions apply. And I think it's pretty common knowledge that there's certain, no parking here to corners, and the sign will be there. I don't know if we necessarily need to depict that visually on this map. So that was another point, a design point that I wanted to get your input on.
I think it makes sense to just indicate where you can park rather than where you can't park.
Okay.
And I do feel like those are signed already in terms of where you can't park. Well, first, I also want to say I really appreciate you guys working on this because we've been talking about this for many, many years now. And I do think the main issue, especially with the downtown parking, is kind of the parking education and management of it, and rather than a supply issue. So I appreciate that. I had some general thoughts, if I can offer. I thought it would make sense to also indicate where the EV parking is and accessible parking, if that's possible. And bike racks. I know that's not related to cars, but it's still bicycle parking. So when they look at the map, it might just make them think twice about, there's other ways to get there. And looking at the map also, I thought it might be helpful just to color block out the public parking lots.
Mhm.
The municipal lot and the Haverford Avenue lot. And also if this is generally for visitors to the downtown area, I do wonder if if we need to do an entire borough map or if we need to do a focused map on the downtown area.
Yeah, so that is something that we had talked about as well. So the intent is that we would take this map and then do a blow up of just the downtown section specifically.
Okay.
So then that would be another kind of elemental question is we'll have the full borough map. This one would be helpful, you know, to post on the website, just for kind of at a glance what the parking circumstances are on any particular block. But in terms of then the physical signage that we post, you know, if you go into Center City, you have the walk shed map. So they have those nice signs to say you are here and here's within a 10-minute walk. Obviously, you can walk back and forth about 50 times in 10 minutes in our downtown. But we were intending on there being two versions of this. One is the full borough wide and the other being a focus just for the downtown. So between Windsor and Haverford and, you know, just past Narberth Avenue, pretty much down to maybe Dudley or Conway here, just to showcase the downtown parking and zoom in specifically. So then the question would be, do you want to see more details on the zoomed in downtown map? And if so, what do you want to see? And then what we can do is we'll provide all this feedback to MCPC. They'll revise it based on our feedback, provide us with another proof to review at whenever that's ready for our next meeting. So if you have specifics for things that you want to see, so I've noted, you said the EV parking locations or bike rack locations, ADA parking, and then color blocking out the public parking lots.
I actually have a whole list of things and I don't want to go through it all.
Oh, okay.
But, I mean, like the main things are, I also think we should indicate the Narberth Bridge and that it's, I don't know if we can indicate on the map that it's closed to vehicles until a certain date. I think that's important information for people to have. I also think directional arrows on the one-way streets would be helpful as well to help people navigate. And do we want to add like the SEPTA bus stops along Haverford Avenue?
Dean, oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to defer to you as the graphic designer. I know a good graphic when I see it. I have zero to contribute to this visually, other than I love the idea of the bike parking, the EV charger, and the ADA spots, because I've actually had trouble with my parents trying to find spots. So I really appreciate you lifting that up because I hadn't thought about it. So you said it.
And I think just visually, these additions that you're describing would be really helpful, I think, in the blow up of the downtown map, but I wouldn't necessarily include them in the whole Narberth map because it feels like it'll be too much information to absorb. Would be my recommendation. But I think those will be incredibly helpful on the blow up of the downtown.
Okay. Well, in terms of also just the metered spaces and the lot spaces, I also wonder if it would be helpful to just kind of list them out, maybe not within the map, but as a footnote or something, just because it's hard to see from this map that there's actually, we have 12 10-hour meters near the downtown. We have 5 5-hour meters, and we have 19 5-hour meters and 35 2-hour meters. And then we have 86 1-hour meters, 15 half-hour meters, 8 EV spaces. And then we have like the public lot spaces, just to list those out so that people are generally aware that those are available to them. And I don't know if it's worthwhile to indicate long-term versus short-term, because those are different needs that people are looking for.
Yeah. Okay.
And for the SEPTA lot, I wonder if it's also helpful to to just put on there that it's $2 a day. And it's free on weekends. It just helps people kind of make the decision on where to park, which is generally the goal of this map, right? To figure out, to help them park in the downtown area.
Yeah, the only thing that I will say is that since we are planning on fabricating these as actual physical signs and posting them,
Okay.
if there are changes to the hours of operation of our meters or the time duration of the meters or the price of parking for SEPTA, which obviously we do not control, then we will need to refabricate those
Okay.
signs. So I think these are all great suggestions.
Mhm.
I do just want to be cautious about putting too much specific information that might be subject to change.
Yeah,
Because
that's
that-
why I'm thinking maybe it's better as a footnote,
Yeah.
just to have that information at the bottom if people are looking for it, rather than the actual map.
Mhm.
But wouldn't that be the same issue? The footnote would be part of the printed material, and that could change over time.
Well, it doesn't have to be, right? It could be just
That
an
could-
online version.
That could just be online. We
Oh,
could
just, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, we
The
might, I
fabric-
mean, we might have like a QR code on the actual printed that would take you to the website, and then the website could be updated with kind of current conditions to have the hours listed out. So that would be a little bit more flexible to account for any sort of changes to any parking policies.
So the printed map would not have that level of detail. Right? No,
I think,
understand.
yeah, I
Thank
think
you.
probably not,
That
yeah.
makes sense.
And also, those meters might change as well. in
Right.
terms of
Correct.
How many hours and things like that.
Right.
Okay. One other thing is, I wonder if it would be helpful to color black out the downtown district, just to indicate where that is on the map. And I can send all this to you as well.
Yeah, if you want to send me your list, we'll pass that on to MCDC.
Okay. Thank you for working on that.
Sure.
I appreciate it.
It sounds like there's a couple of good things for our current summer intern to verify. So I'm sure she'll appreciate getting out and walking around town.
All right, I think we can move on to the next discussion item, which is traffic calming and safety policy reports. So this is something I wanted to discuss here, just because since we adopted the traffic calming and safety policy in November, we've had some opportunities to see it in practice. So, you know, when those requests come in, they're evaluated by the staff and the police department to determine the eligibility, and if eligible, the data collection happens, and then staff makes another evaluation to determine whether it's brought to the Public Health and Safety Committee or enforcement or whatever those actions may be. I think there may be a little bit of a gap in terms of information of, you know, how many of those are being done. So I thought it would be, and I talked to Chief String about this in terms of doing either a monthly report or some sort of regular report, just to indicate what evaluations have occurred, and if the evaluations do occur, to have a summary of those evaluations, which is to some extent we are receiving those, but to just kind of standardize that process a little bit more. So, Chief String, do you have any thoughts on that structure?
No, I think it's a good plan in order to make sure everyone's on the same page. And I think time to time, you know, especially when there's a lot of these, and I think we've had conversations where like, hey, didn't we discuss that previously? Is this a, you know, repeat issue or something? So bringing that in front of everyone and we can hash it all out makes the future process a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. And
That's
so
great.
maybe it's just like a monthly traffic calming report, if that makes sense.
How is it, in terms of burden and benefit for you, what is that?
So we're already doing the reports.
We are,
Like I said,
okay.
it's simple. I can just copy and paste and maybe put it on like a letterhead or something and send it to everybody. So it won't be that much.
The burden's not big.
No.
Great.
And John, we can talk about this as well with our new hire, Maria.
Yeah.
And you guys can work together on drafting
That'd be
like a
perfect.
finished product.
Yeah,
And then we also talked about possibly doing just an annual list, and a report, and that's just kind of listing the metrics, like how many requests we received, how many were eligible, things like that. Nothing too complicated or detailed, but just so that we as a committee can kind of have like a high level overview of what has come in and what the concerns are that are coming in from the community. And I think Chief String said that would be doable as well.
yes.
Okay. Any other thoughts from the committee?
No, it's great.
Okay. All right, thanks. Then we'll move on to the next discussion item, which is Park Aim Day 2026. And Maggie, I'll let you take this away.
Yeah, so Parking Day is a global phenomenon, and I learned that this is the 20th anniversary of the official launch of Parking Day. This is an opportunity for communities to take the day and transform on-street parking spaces into, it started off as parklets, so it's called Parking Day because it's a parking space that you turn into a small park. But the sky's the limit in terms of what people have utilized the spaces for. So I've seen everything from a smoothie bar to a little, fitness studio to a parklet to a jam band. I've seen small like community theaters and pop-up shows and puppet theaters and other things for kids to do, kids activities, coloring and painting and, rock painting, things like that. So I wanted to bring that concept to the borough. I think it would be really great. It ties in with our efforts of sustainability and kind of utilization of our community spaces, and just a really great opportunity for our local businesses as well to participate, kind of expand, spill out onto the street a little bit. I know we have plenty of events where we close down the streets and have, our music fest and other things. So this would just be something fun to do. The actual day itself is, I have it in the memo, September 18th. So we can choose to do it on that day, which is when Parking Day will be celebrated globally. We could also pick a different day. We don't have to do it necessarily on that specific day, because that does kind of correspond to a number of other community events that we have going on. So the Fall Music Festival is the weekend prior. So I'm not sure if we wanted to do something back to back, but this does not conflict with any First Fridays that the NBA puts on. We could actually, if you wanted to, correlate this with the First Friday, kind of tie Parking Day into a First Friday celebration. So sky's limits here in terms of what we want to do with timing. But the idea being is that we would dedicate some or all of the parking spaces. My thought was that we would take spaces on Haverford Avenue, kind of piggyback it with some of the on-street eateries that we already have. So we can determine how many spaces we want. That might be based on like pre-registration, kind of what the interest is. It would be open to, we'll set parameters for kind of who would be eligible to take a space. So we could do, nonprofits, local community groups, businesses, other organizations. We could even do just private residents if they want to just kind of have an interpretive, whatever they want. So we come up with parameters, we come up with a registration form, and we gauge interest. We see how many parking spaces. We coordinate obviously with John. There would be probably a small registration fee just to cover the administrative costs for this. Something very low though and very achievable. And then we set parameters and then we set the time as well. So we pick the day, we pick the time. Some municipalities will just do this kind of midday. So it's just like a 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then everybody can clear out and then the spaces become available for the evening. This is on a Friday, so we want to make sure that our business community is on board with this. We don't want to create, burdens or disruptions to folks who are coming into town for, dinners out or anything. But again, it could also be a really great opportunity for them to kind of enhance those sales opportunities if they participate and kind of buy a spot. So I just wanted to introduce this as an idea. It's a lot of fun for the community. I've really enjoyed participating in parking days in my past municipalities and in my past roles as a planner. It's generally very, very successful. I think it would be very well received here. So I just wanted to introduce that as a fun concept for us to take on for this year.
Great. I 100% support it. I think it's street level activation. It's great for the downtown. I would encourage you to collaborate with the NBA as well. And I'll open it up to the committee for their thoughts.
I appreciate it. I think it's cool. I think it's really important for us to find out what the business community feels about this. We just talked about parking, where parking is an issue. In speaking with many of our business members, they depend on people who drive here for their businesses. And I'm not against it. I just want to make sure. I always think of things as what's the benefit, what's the burden. This is a really cool, fun idea. We do a lot of really cool, fun things here. Where we we do great in our birthdays and other events in the park. We shut down the streets for music fests already, and I just want to make sure that we're not unintentionally hurting the income of our businesses. So to me, that's issue number one before we would consider moving forward with this. And
Yeah, no need to.
I'm sorry, and maybe combining it with another event where the streets are already closed, or something's going on, like a First Friday, or the Music Fest, having parklets at the Music Fest. But again, I defer to the business community.
So I do just want to note the idea of parking day is that you do not actually close the streets. So you do still have traffic that goes through. It's just the parking spaces that are reserved.
Thank you for the
Yeah, I agree.
I'm in third stance.
Yes.
I would just, Joe, there's no need to repeat what you just said, but I would just suggest that we speak with Ed and Tracy and the NBA before we even bring this to council.
Okay, great. We'll go ahead and set up. We'll brainstorm a little bit and we'll get together with them and get their thoughts on it, and circle back around with you guys.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to committee reports. Actually, we'll start with the Police Advisory Committee, if that's okay. We have Kate Cornwall here from the Police Advisory Committee with her report.
I have very little to share because we did not, we haven't had a report since March. And in March, you were out with family issues. We talked about, discussed the 911 changes in calls to 911. So discussed here. Nothing new.
Okay, all right.
Wow, it was incredibly generous of you to come here for such
Yeah,
a limited
thank you for
report.
coming.
I am so impressed and grateful. Thank
I
you.
hope you enjoyed the meeting.
I'm learning a lot.
All right, thank you. And for the Environmental Advisory Council, I'll just give a quick update that they're still working on the CCA, the Community Choice Aggregation, still not currently authorized in Pennsylvania, but our borough, as well as the PSABs, Pennsylvania State Association of Boroughs, they are both advocating for CCA and PA to allow, basically to enable legislation that would allow community choice aggregation in the future. So that's in progress. And I think that's it for committee reports. We'll move on to departmental reports. The fire company report will be attached, and the police report is also attached. And Chief String, do you have anything else to add?
In addition to the report, I just had a quick question for the committee here. So we have a traffic safety concern that was addressed, and it's beyond the scope of the police department's ability to analyze it. So do you want that brought before the committee before we engage the engineer, or is that something we take to council?
Oh, I just realized, yeah, you had asked to add that to the agenda, but I don't think we added it beforehand. We could talk about that briefly now, if you are prepared.
Sure. So the concern was that the intersection of Conway and Sabine, there was a sight line issue, And it is aggravated due to the slope of the roadway. And, while I consider myself a little bit of a mathematician and I know I use a protractor, I don't want to go out there and try to assume that, I can account for all these, the code is very specific when it talks about sightlines and everything else. I would feel more comfortable engaging the engineer and getting their professional opinion on all this versus me kind of just going out there to the farm around.
So because it's not on the agenda, I don't feel comfortable making that decision at this point for the committee. So could we bring that back next month?
Does that need a council approval? I mean, if the chief of police and director of public health and safety says I need an engineer to help me make a decision, is there a reason why we need to approve that? And
Well, if we're engaging the engineer, their services.
I don't think we need to do that. I mean, I'll defer to staff on this, but I think, John, if you're saying, yeah, I need to consult the engineer to make a decision, I don't think that needs council approval.
So there's definitely times where, like, if we have a labor concern, we reach out to labor council, and don't necessarily bring that to borough council because we have an agreement, they're on retainer. I can see this operating in the same light. I just didn't, wanted to let you know that it existed and that we were seeking this outside service.
What is the approximate cost? I know you don't know exactly, but
Normally it's, it's like $500-600 normally, under $1,000 I think for most of these.
Yeah, I'm just thinking in terms of comparable things. Probably like no more than 2,000, but it really depends on, I'd have to get an estimate from them because I don't know how extensive of an engineering review would have to be done for this. But, yeah, a couple $100 up to 2,000 depends on the severity of the engineering review.
I have a suggestion. Rather than, since we're uncertain if it needs council or not, and waiting another 4 weeks to come to public health and safety seems like a long time, can we add it to the council agenda? That, and we'll gather more information and just briefly discuss it at the council, or if it needs council approval.
I'll defer
guess
to
not.
Maggie on that.
I mean, I'm just trying to recall how our policy is worded because we essentially say if a traffic calming concern is raised, staff do evaluation, and as part of that evaluation, it could include engineering evaluation. But I'd want to double check on the policy, and I want to be mindful of our time as well.
Let me phrase my thoughts differently. If it does require council approval, can we just bring it to council at the next council meeting? But if it doesn't require council approval, then it doesn't need to be on the agenda. I'm just concerned about waiting till the next public health and safety committee meeting in 4 weeks to then review it and have it on the council agenda 6 weeks from now. It feels like we could get to work on it soon.
I mean, I do, if it's a minimal cost to engage the engineer on this, I'm comfortable with allowing that as the rest of the committee is.
Fine.
Hearing yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Looking forward to that, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I will open it up to public comment for any general public comments.
I have one question,
Sure.
since there's a lot of interest in storm bump outs. Is there any hazard to bicyclists in storm bump outs?
Well, they're currently painted yellow and also have the reflectors on them. I'll let Chief String and Jeff answer in terms of what their view is.
My view is, since they occupy the same width as a parked vehicle, that I don't see them as an issue, in my years here, had issue with them or an accident for the balls, on them, so.
And the street lights are normally sufficient that might, it's still visible. So.
And I'm a avid bicyclist and I travel around the borough, but I may not be the best judge of that because I can't see myself like running into those accidentally just because just like I wouldn't run into a curb, but, I guess anything is possible.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Seeing no other comments, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor? Great. Meeting is adjourned at 11 a.m. Thank you.